Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of my repaint series on the channel. My name is JurassicKM, and for the first episode, I wanted to start us off with something that was fairly simple, but at the same time was something that I'd never done before. So I decided that I'm going to use this video to show you how I make the Mantah Corp Island Velociraptors from Seasons 4 and 5 of Camp Cretaceous. Now, I understand that not a lot of people were crazy about Seasons 4 and 5. If you want to know my thoughts on it, I didn't hate them. Season 4 is the weakest of the series overall. Season 5 was better, but Seasons 1 through 3 were better than Seasons 4 and 5. So originally my plan was to take the Camp Cretaceous Savage Strike Velociraptor figure from Mattel with the rotating torso, because I was under the impression that that was meant to be the Mantah Corp Island Velociraptor anyway. It's just, so what I'm going to do with my collection is I'm going to take the individual figures that are meant to be specific creatures. Like this one's meant to be the bull T-Rex. This one's meant to be the Lost World Velociraptor. This one's meant to be the JP3 female raptor, you know, etc., etc. And I'm going to paint them to look closer to their on-screen counterparts. Unfortunately, I cannot find the Velociraptor with the rotating torso at the moment. So instead, what I'm going to be using is I'm going to be using this Velociraptor. This is the one that came with Ian Malcolm in the Jurassic World Dominion human dinosaur sets. Now, yes, this is one of the nicer paint jobs that Mattel has done on their figures. Credit where credit's due. However, this particular Velociraptor was never actually featured in Jurassic World Dominion. So in my eyes, it's fair game for repainting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this toy a quick wash just to get any kind of like dirt, grime, grease, whatever off of it. And then what I will do is I'm going to show you the colors that we'll be using today to make this into the Mantah Corp Island Velociraptor. So the head on this particular raptor was a little wobbly, and since I treat my repaints like mini maquettes anyway, I have super glued it into place so that the head doesn't move around and scratch off the paint in any progress that is made over the course of filming this video. So now that I have established that, what we're going to be using to fully give this Velociraptor a cosmetic makeover is we're going to start with Liquitex Basics Acrylics Gesso. This is really good for the Mattel figures because a lot of the Mattel figures have kind of that rubbery plastic instead of that solid plastic. So if you spray it with like a Krylon aerosol primer, sometimes that plastic gets really gummy and tacky and it's just a pain to work with. So this bypasses that. The only downside is that it's too thick to go through an airbrush, but this whole repaint we're going to be doing by hand. Then we are going to use Deco Art Crafters Acrylic Tan as a base coat. We will then be going in with Deco Art Crafters Acrylic Antique White. Then we will be going in with a mix of yellow and burnt umber. Then we will also be throwing in a little bit of cinnamon brown. We're also going to need some black, some deep red, some bright orange, and some royal violet or any other dark purple that you can get your hands on. Finally, the tools that we are going to be using to bring this Mantah Corp Velociraptor to life is, first, we are going to need a paint palette. We are also going to need some broader headed brushes. We've also got some brand new fine tip brushes. We've got a jar of water with a eyedropper in it. You'll see why in a moment. And we've also got some toothpicks to mix the paint and water together. So let's get started. All right, so for the first step, we are just going to be starting with the gesso primer right out of the cap. We want to try to spread that out. So now we are going to put the base coat on, and for this we are using the tan. And I've watered this down a little bit with some water. How I usually do the base coats is for every 2 drops of paint, I put in 1 drop of water. And that's why I have a water dropper for these kinds of ratios. So usually these kinds of base coats take 2 coats because we don't need any of that primer bleeding through. This is what I meant by always make sure that you put 2 coats, because if you look on the sides here, you can still see some of like the primer and the original color bleeding through, and we can't have that. So I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to put on a second coat. All right, so for this next part here, we're going to take the antique white, and for every 1 drop of paint, we're going to add about 4 drops of water, and then we're going to do the bottom jaw, and then the top half, or the bottom half rather, of the top jaw, as well as the whole underbelly. Now this may seem a little bright, like really, really white at first, but don't worry, we'll come back to this and we'll mute the color in a couple of steps from now. So next up is going to be the yellow stripes down the side of the raptor's body. Now, I'm not going to be doing this on camera because I need my camera / my phone to look at the reference picture. So I'm going to do that off screen real quick, and we'll be right back. I hope these are showing up on video okay, because let me tell you, if you've ever heard Jurassic Junkie mention that the yellow paints don't cover very well, he was not kidding. These stripes took about 3 coats of, it was a mix of yellow and antique white, and I watered it down. It was 2 parts antique white, 1 part yellow, so I wound up using 6 drops of antique white and 3 of yellow. And then I watered it 1-to-1 ratio. So it was for every drop of paint, it got a drop of water. But liking how this turned out. Now the next step, thankfully, or the next couple of steps rather, are going to be real easy. So for the next part here, and I probably should have done this step before I did the stripes, but whatever, this is all part of the learning curve. We are going to take 2 parts raw umber and 1 part yellow, mix it together, and we're probably going to give that about a 1-to-3 paint to water ratio. And then we are going to do like the eye socket, the top of the snout here, and then this little part down the spine, like this little line here. We're going to do all of that, and then we're going to close it out over the tip of the tail. I was actually going to use some watered down cinnamon brown for the claws here, but looking at the reference pictures and the screenshots that I have from the show, the claws on the Mantah Corp Velociraptor are actually pretty close to, if not the exact same color as this stripe that we just put down. So we're going to take the same wash that we just used to make the stripe, and we are going to very, very carefully paint the claws. Apologies for the picture not focusing here, guys, but I did a test. So what I did was I took the mix that we used earlier for these dark stripes and the claws, and since I had made some extra, I watered that down additionally to about a 1:6 paint to water ratio. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this wash and we're going to put it over the entire Velociraptor. All right, so we are on the home stretch here. What I've done with the eyeballs is I've just taken some yellow straight out of the cap, and now I am covering it with the watered down, it's about 1:5 of bright orange. And then the next part is the really, really tricky part. This is, as Jurassic Junkie says, hold your breath moment. It is black straight out of the cap for the cat's eyes. I also did the nostrils off screen. Now, full disclosure, I tested this on the top of the mouth already because I knew that was going to be a pain in the neck to try to get on film. And I also just wanted to see if it works. Spoiler alert, it does. So now what we're going to be doing is we're going to use a 1:5 paint to water ratio. And then we do, and this is of the deep red. And we're going to do the whole mouth. And then we also want to get the little gums on the sides here too. Next, what I did was I actually didn't even let the colors dry. Is I then took a 1:5 paint to water ratio again of the royal violet or whatever deep purple you end up using. So, and then we're just going to go over the same spots that we went over with the deep red. And then finally, for the teeth, we're going to use the same color that we used for the yellowish stripes. It's a combination of white and yellow, and because it's got that perfect kind of creamy yellow that looks like gross, grimy, wild animal teeth. Sorry, I had to do this one off screen again. I think the next dinosaur that I'm going to repaint is going to be a bigger one so I could get more of it on screen. But this is the last of the paint that needs to go on. So what we will be doing now is we're going to be using some of this Liquitex acrylic mediums matte varnish, and we're just going to brush the clear coat on. You can also use this with an airbrush. You don't have to water it down. And then once this clear coat has been dried and cured, we will then use clear nail polish to apply to the eyes, mouth, and the nostrils and claws, and then this repaint will be done. Alright everyone, I want to thank you all for watching the first video in my repaint series. I've never done this one before, and while I am happy with how it turned out overall, I'm already looking at ways that I can improve this design, so maybe I will revisit it in the future. But for now, feel free to have a look at the completed Mantah Corp Island Velociraptor from Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous. If you want to follow me on Instagram, the links will be below in the description. So, again, thanks everyone for checking out my video, and until next time, this is JurassicKM signing off.